renewable diesel based out of frying oils, redundant frying oils. Myself, I'm driving a hydrogen car, so I moved away from diesel as well. I'm on hydrogen, and we're trying to let's say kick out any fossil energy carrier by the end of 2025. And that will may improve. Then we go from 40 kilograms CO2 per cubic meter installation, we go maybe to 60 or 65 kilos.
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining this morning. I'm really excited to be back. Mark, I'm really excited to have you on, especially you've got lots of background. And like we were just saying, you're doing what a lot of us are just talking about. And so I'm excited to hear your experience. But before we get started, I want to remind everybody that NOCO is upcoming next week. And both Mark and I will be presenting at NOCO. I'm actually going to be moderating a seed discussion with some awesome panelists and discussion or speakers or guests. And so I encourage you guys to join. And then also we've got our NOCO awards banquet, which I'm really thrilled about. We've been working hard with our team. We had over 400, probably almost 500 nominations come in for different categories. And that's been pretty exciting to see some of the people that have won. And so shout out to all of you that have put your time in and nominated different executives or different companies for the award. So let us know where you're coming from. Please chime in. I'd love to highlight what you guys are doing today. Let me know where you're at, what you do, what part of the business you're in, and of course, if you have any questions for Mark. And so without further ado, Mark, I'd love to turn it over to you and kind of give you an opportunity to give me an introduction. What have you been working on? How long have you been in the industry? You know, where'd you come from? Who your parents are? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, all the details.
Yeah. Not a long story. Actually, my parents are involved more or less in this. Yes, my name is Mark Reinders. Thank you very much for having me on the show tonight. It's a pleasure to be here and share some hemp experience with you guys. My name is Mark Reinders. I'm 40 years old. Grew up on a farm very close to HempFlax in the Netherlands. And actually, my father was one of the first farmers that started growing hemp for HempFlax. So we didn't found HempFlax. HempFlax was founded by the Dronkers family, Mr. Ben Dronkers, a real cannabis pioneer. Well, no, I was still going to high school, but I was impressed already at that time by the immense growing speed hemp has. As you probably know, it can grow on average 4 centimeters a day. In the summer, with a lot of water and temperature, it can go up to 12 centimeters a day. Mm-hmm. And the real reason I liked it at that moment was maybe not the most valid reason, but in the other crops, I had to work during my summer holidays to remove the weeds by hand and work in the field like that. And with the hemp is growing so fast, there are no weeds. So I didn't have to go in the field to remove the weeds during my holiday time. So that was my first reason to like hemp. But you know, you get older. Right? Yeah. So you know, you're getting older, and I was doing a study, a bachelor degree in agricultural crop production and agricultural business, and I had to do an internship at a company, and I decided to do my internship in 2001 at HempFlax because I got interested what happened with a crop when it left our farm, and there I really got my attention that a massive amount of possibilities and products you can make out of hemp, even in that time already in the early 2000s. And I did my internship, worked a couple of years in the potato industry, trading. Then I went to the recycling business. I worked for a recycling company for 4 years, where we recycled old waste disposal yards, and we separated in iron, metal, wood, everything, and we reused about 80% of what we collected there. We reused, and I thought, okay, this is costing a lot of energy, a lot of capital to do that. And it's good to recycle because you're solving a problem. But then I started thinking it's maybe better to be at the beginning of the supply chain and change from the beginning to prevent having these problems. And with that vision, I returned back in 2008 to HempFlax. I spoke with Ben Dronkers about it, shared my vision. And he is a real great visionary, and he gave me the opportunity at that time to run HempFlax. And what was HempFlax at that time? It was a company with 5 people, and me, number 6. And we were processing about 100 to 200 hectares of hemp a year. Looking at today, in 2022, we are now at 68 people in the group. We have 3 companies, 2 decortication facilities. The first is in the Netherlands, decorticating about 1,500 hectares of hemp. And the other one is in Romania, decorticating a small 1,000 hectares of hemp. And we have since June 2020, we have a hemp insulation factory in the southern part of Germany, actually where I am today. So I'm live from the hemp insulation factory, and where we work with 25 people producing hemp insulation from fiber. And I think the cool part of HempFlax is that we really have the process from sowing the seeds till the end products in the roof or in the car. We have it in our own hands. So the long supply chain.
Okay, so you're vertically integrated from seed to end product.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What would you say some of the biggest challenges that you've had as far as development of your supply chain, your vertically integrated supply chain, and what has been the biggest accomplishment to overcome or to be able to, successfully finish?
Yeah, no, challenges. We have 27 years of challenges, and the challenges every time, every week different. It looks like it goes from THC regulations in food and feed up to the current energy prices and competition with grain to motivate farmers to grow hemp because they can get so much for the corn and wheat today. The vertical chain integration is very important for the hemp industry because we are competing with products that are traditional, synthetic, and they are having short supply chains.
And they're subsidized. A lot of those are government subsidized.
Yeah, and that's a frustrating thing. If you look at, for example, glass wool insulation or rope wool insulation, there are installations. Well, it's insulating your house, but if you look at the need for energy to produce those products, it's massively. And you need for the production of glass fiber, you need 10 times more the energy compared to a hemp fiber insulation material. So on the other hand, the current high energy prices is of course not nice for us, but for them it's 10 times worse than for me. So we see now that the prices for glass fiber and hemp fiber are very comparable, are getting more and more comparable. To give an answer on your original question, what are the challenges? I think the big challenge I envision personally in being active in this industry is to keep focus. Because the biggest advantage of hemp is such a multi-purpose crop. You can make 10,000 things out of it. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest advantage. Mm-hmm. The biggest disadvantage of hemp is you can make so many products out of it. So
squirrel.
So sometimes people are telling me, looking at HempFlax, is, hey guys, you're supplying fibers to the automotive industry, you're making building materials, you're making animal bedding, and you deliver CBD, and you're making foods. Don't you have a focus? I say, yeah, we have a focus, but the focus is hemp. And what we do is we try to utilize the whole hemp crop from the top till the root. Mm-hmm. And because we have only one raw material in our company called hemp, we are, I always say, an upside down factory. Normally, if you go to a factory like a car manufacturing plant, you see 10,000 parts coming together. And by the end of the day, you have one product, a car. We are other way around. We have one raw material, hemp goes in the factory, and almost 10,000 things are coming out. Yeah. And you have to capitalize on that. And that's the most difficult thing to do is, what are you doing? Where are you going to focus on? Where are you going to invest in? And I can tell you one thing, if you try to do all, you will not make it. You have to pick your sweethearts and focus on that. And yeah, that's the most difficult thing.
I like it. Okay, so you said something earlier, capitalize, right? And of course, as we talk about this, the economics always come up. So I have a question about the economics of this project, right? And of the industry. As we're butting up against, record high prices for wheat and corn and soybean and a lot of these other commodities, what does the economic value look like? And how do we bridge that gap as we're speaking to those that are unfamiliar with the benefits of the hemp plant, right? When we're talking to the dollar and to the economic impact.
Yeah. You're right. And today we have to compete on farm level with crops like wheat and barley and corn, which in normal situations we could compete very well. For a farmer, it was more profitable to grow hemp than wheat. Also looking at the amount of work he has to do. For wheat, he has to spend 8 till 9 hours per hectare. With hemp, it's only 2 hours because we do the harvest for him. And there's no need for him to do the harvest. He's planting the hemp and that's it. And so that's why hemp was a favorable crop. But now the economics changed of the world situation, and the grain prices exploded, corn price exploded. So now for them, it's more attractive to grow wheat and corn. Mm-hmm. I think it's also a temporary thing, because if so many people are growing to wheat and corn, it's demand and supply is still also valid in the agricultural business. So it will come down one day. And with hemp, we have a stable pricing. But because we have to improve our payment capacity, that's how I call it. How much can I pay to the farmer? I need to improve it. Mm-hmm. I need to capitalize on all those revenue streams. I can't say I'm focusing on CBD only, and the rest of the plant I don't care, and the CBD business is my own business. Now I can tell you, it was maybe nice a couple of years ago, but thanks that you guys also very actively started producing CBD, the CBD market is completely disrupted, and there's so much supply, and the demand didn't change, and the prices are very low. So I'm happy that CBD was not my only business. I'm happy that I still have construction materials and animal bedding, and that you have capitalizing on all those revenue. Even our dust, Mandi, we filtrate about 200,000 cubic meters an hour in our production installation by moving the hemp fiber to the factory, by filtration, internal transport. About 15% of my input turns into dust due to all the processing steps. And we are filtrating 200,000 cubic meters an hour. And that dust is being collected. We sieve it out. We get the fine hemp shives out. We get the fine fiber out. And the really fine dust, we call it hemp flour, is being sold to a special growing medium company that is producing growing mediums out of it for special crops like roses. And they are exporting it, believe it or not, to South Korea. So my dust ends up in the high-end rose breeding industry in South Korea.
That's so funny. Yesterday,
don't throw away anything. We use everything.
Well, and like you said, that's really how we get the profit back to our farmer, right? If we can capitalize on the value of the crop. And it's funny you bring up the roses, because yesterday I was speaking with the Secretary of Agriculture, or the previous Secretary of Agriculture in Ecuador, and learned of their rose production there as well. And so what a funny, I guess serendipitous, topic that comes up. So I have a question about processing, or your harvesting process, right? Are you dual crop, tri-crop, or seed, fiber, and cannabinoid, or how are you growing just for fiber production? When are you harvesting? Can you talk a little bit or walk through some of the harvesting process?
I would say all of the above.
Okay.
Because in the Netherlands, we do only the fiber harvesting. So that we use a single cut harvester. We actually last year developed a module that can be built into a John Deere forest harvester, self-propelled forest harvester, that only cuts the hemp and cuts it in pieces of 60 centimeters length and put it back in a swath for drying and redding. In the Netherlands, we can't harvest the seeds because of the climate, because then the seeds will be ripe, let's say, end of September. Then I need 2 to 3 weeks drying and redding. Then I'm in October, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the weather conditions in the Netherlands, but I need to have my hemp dry from the field. And that's in October in the Netherlands pretty difficult because then it's really rainy conditions. So we and we are not allowed in the Netherlands to halve the leaves. The law doesn't allow us that. Luckily, we are on the border with Germany. In Germany, although we are allowed to halve the leaves, we can't halve the seeds, but we take fiber and leaves. And therefore, we use our double cut combine. The double cut combine, it's a modification kit we actually supply in a new joint venture we have with a John Deere dealer in the North Netherlands called Kerr. Kerr stands for Crop-Ability North Netherlands. I think later you will speak with Gerard about that, my colleague in this new venture. But this double cut combine the attachment can be built on a combine. He takes the leaves are being put back in the trailer to collect and doesn't touch the ground, stays clean and food safe. And the stalk is being cut. And then if you look at our farm in Romania, we do the triple use. There we take the seeds as well because the Romanian climate, Romania is a bit more southerly, and we have a longer good weather conditions in the autumn. So there we do the triple use. And again, we take the double cut combine, but now we take the seeds in a quart tank. The leaves are in the back of the TFT10 trailer, and the stalks are back on the field for drying and redding and further processing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love it. So Josh asked the question. I just wanted to ask about harvesting. It came in at the exact time that I had typed it and put it in there. And Kayla, again, congratulations, Mark, on your partnership with John Deere. That's pretty impressive. And it's something that comes up, especially as I start to travel to different countries and we start to talk about, what does harvesting look like and size? At what point have you guys figured out it's appropriate? When does farming become profitable? What size or how many acres do we need to consider when we're looking at profitability for our farmers?
Yeah, for a farmer, it depends a little bit how you organize it. In the Netherlands and Germany, we work with contracted farmers. So those farmers, let's say the average size in our area is about between 100 and 200 hectares. So that's about 240 acres up to 500 acres farm size. And they grow mostly in our area starch potatoes, sugar beets, and wheat. And they do hemp in the crop rotation. So those farmers do, let's say, 40, 50 acres of hemp. And they make a contract with us. They do the sowing and we do the harvesting. So for them, there are no big investments involved to do it. If I would ask my farmers to buy specialized equipment like a specialized John Deere double cut combine or a single cut harvester, then they need more acres to do that. In some regions in Germany, I see now farmers working together and buying together one combine to make it more profitable. But till now in the Netherlands, Germany, and Romania, we do it ourselves with our own equipment. So for the farmers, it becomes very much profitable quickly. For us as a processor, it's a different kind of thing because there are high investments needed in not only the harvesting equipment, but also in the decortication unit and the building and everything. The multi-million projects to do that. Mm-hmm. And do not underestimate the working capital you need because we only harvesting one time a year. So you're buying your raw material need for a whole year at one time. So you need also working capital to do that. Let's say on just a rule of thumb, don't sue me for this one, but just a rule of thumb, we say you will need around 4,000 acres at least to be break even with a fully scaled hemp decortication plant.
Okay, I hope that's heard loud and clear because those are much larger numbers, obviously, than what we're seeing grown, right, locally in the U.S. We're starting to see a lot of groups come together by region or territory. Now, when we talk about scale, can you speak to the scalability opportunity and the importance of keeping farms close to processor and or where that breaking point or that tipping point is to maintain profitability?
Yeah, and that's also and for every different situation different. And of course, to come back to that one, I appreciate that a lot of people in the US are trying to set up decorticators because at the moment there is nothing
Right.
with a long history, and everybody's pioneering. And I think that that's the most beautiful part of doing hemp. And we see a lot of things going on. And if you pioneer with secondhand machinery or you build something yourself, you can do it, of course, smaller scale. I'm speaking about a full scale professional hemp processing plant. But the scalability, what we do is we try to keep the raw material as close as possible to the factory. So in the Netherlands, we have the factory, and 50, 60 kilometers around the factory is our growing area. So we keep the transport distance of the raw material close as possible, because hemp is a lot of volume. It's very lightweighted, and then the decortication plant is in the middle, and then from this decortication plant, the fiber and the shifts and the end products we're trying to sell in 700-800 kilometers around the factory. That's why in our scaling, when the dust facility reached its maximum capacity, we decided to instead of increasing the capacity of the dust factory at that moment, we decided to build a new factory in Romania. So from that point, again, our own farm, and those lands are very close to the factory. And again, 600-700 kilometers around the factory, we have our marketing area. So now from Romania, we're supplying also into Turkey, which was from the Netherlands, due to transportation costs, not very likely to do. So a little bit like a telephone network, we're trying to cover the European market by setting up processing hubs everywhere to keep the transportation costs viable. And our production plants can handle about 5,000 hectares each on maximum capacity. So we have some excess capacity left to grow in the nearby future.
To expand. Okay, awesome. We talked a little bit about hemp insulation. Where do you see big opportunity on a global scale for industrial hemp that maybe isn't, we're just scratching the surface, or we haven't tapped into it, or maybe we're not even considering it due to the capital investment or the standards or specifics that have to be figured out?
Yeah. Now, we were lucky enough that the company, our hemp insulation factory, actually exists already 25 years. We took over in 2020. It used to be one of our clients in the past, and there came an opportunity to take it over, and we took it over in order to make our supply chain longer. So that's also something you can do to integrate your supply chain by integrating clients or suppliers. And hemp insulation is still a niche market. If you compare it to the mainstream glass wool, rock wool, polystyrene, polyurethane, that's the mainstream because it's cheap. And people tend to choose building materials that is cheap because they want to have money left for the interior or for the big television or whatever. Although the whole game changed today because of the high energy prices, our pricing becomes very comparable with the traditional materials. And the most important part I believe in is the CO2 emissions. We see in Germany already they're taxing CO2 emissions. So companies who are emitting too much CO2, carbon dioxide, have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And we are very close to finalizing our system that we have a negative CO2 footprint. At the moment, we have 40 kilograms of CO2 stored per cubic meter of hemp insulation material. And we're trying to claim to get paid for that 40 kilos. Okay. And those 40 kilos will improve in the nearby future because at the moment we are installing 1.9 megawatt of solar panels on the roof of that facility. We're transferring our machinery like the tractors and the combines to a renewable diesel based out of frying oils, redundant frying oils. Myself, I'm driving a hydrogen car, so I moved away from diesel as well. I'm on hydrogen, and we're trying to let's say kick out any fossil energy carrier by the end of 2025. And that may improve. Then we go from 40 kilograms CO2 per cubic meter insulation, we go maybe to 60 or 65 kilos. So we see that that's a big advantage and a big future.
For sure.
And on the other thing, health, because we are not building our houses very healthy these days, because the focus is only on insulation values. So a lot of plastic foils are being used. Actually, I explain to my clients sometimes that they're living in a plastic bag. Pull a plastic bag around your head. How does it feel?
And then spray it with chemicals. Spray the plastic bag with chemicals on top of that.
Yeah, now actually, I don't know what's in the US, but in Europe, we have called the sick building syndrome. People are getting sick by working or living in terribly insulated buildings. Mm-hmm. It's warm, but the moisture, humidity is way too high. There's fungi around. Even some houses I've seen, this black mold growing in each corner of the house. That's not healthy. And with hemp, we go back to old building systems where the nature is working. So you can make breathable walls, and let's say it's taking the humidity from the inside, transporting to the outside, and he's regulating on a natural way your internal humidity. And air humidity is one of the three main drivers about the level of comfort you experience in your house. And I think by the time the mainstream finally finds out these big advantages hemp has over traditional building materials, it can go very fast.
Okay, I totally agree with you. And I think that this is where we have major opportunity. And we actually have some members that this hits pretty close to home, and why they've started their business is they're unsafe or unhealthy living conditions that they were unaware of. And I think that's it too, is I was so unaware of the plastics and the chemicals that we're using and being surrounded by, because it's what we've known and it's all I've known. And it hasn't affected me personally, right? Like it has some of our other members. And so I think the education about what that risk is still has to be, there's a lot of education that has to come out, right? And being able to compare, especially when we're looking dollar for dollar. I've spoken to a number of big construction companies that say, I like sustainable products, but my price is what's going to decide. And understanding we really are up against this comparative. Yeah. Okay. So then when we talk about, you were mentioning, herd into building materials and, fiber into insulation and things like that. Can we talk a little bit about the standards? Something that I've heard, and I don't know this, but the quality of decortication or processing really dictates the hemp herd's ability to, wick moisture or insulate or, filter the air. Can you speak to that a little bit and the standards that are, being sought after by the buyers of the end products for the quality of fiber or herd?
No, actually, the standards are a little bit of an issue. There are no real standards. I know that on hemp shives in France, there's a standard being developed on the grading size of shives for being suitable for hempcrete applications. Up to now, because hemp is still a very premature industry, even for us after 27 years, the standards are being set in the specifications you agree on with you and your client. Your client said, I want a fiber that long, that fine, that purity, that moisture content, that wetting degree, and then you set it. And internally, we speak about technical grade fiber, insulation grade fiber, textile grade fiber, paper grade fiber, that terminology we came up with. But the problem is there are no standards how to measure that. Actually, just to measure the fiber length, it's going very low tech. There's one in the office and checking the fibers, they're counting 200 fibers, measuring the fiber length, and we put it in an Excel sheet and we calculate the average fiber length and the standard distribution.
Yeah.
And if I give the same sample to 3 different colleagues, I get 3 different values. So I think there should be a lot of effort being put into digitalizing, automating that kind of things. How can we measure the fiber length automatic on not sending to a very expensive laboratory, but how can you do it at the decortication plants yourselves? Redding degree, there's a Redding scale being developed many years ago by the IA in the Netherlands, of in Europe, sorry, that we use every day. And we say, okay, green is 0 and black is 9, and you have all these color scales. But colors, if I look at color, you look at a color, I think we have a different opinion on what color it is, right? Mm-hmm. Also there we should have something that's not interfered by humans, but just a measuring device can measure, hey, this is the redding degree. And I think by the moment we have that technology in place to measure fiber length, fiber purity, and fiber redding degree, then we can also have a standard, and then we can, everywhere in the world, we can agree on what a specific quality should look like.
Well, and this is where, there's a lot of talk about machine learning and AI becoming a part of this, processing. And I look at our ability to collect the data and take, core samples from within the processing, through each step of processing could be very impactful when we look at, like you said, the automated piece or the technology that can be attached to development of those standards and grading. There was another great question Josh had, and then John had another question I'll get to here in just a minute, but asking about your waste products and processing, such as your lignins or pectin, as they emerge, they're such emerging markets for green chemicals. What are you guys doing with your pectin and lignin?
Now, as I explained before, we do not have waste products. We only have high-value secondary byproducts. But
this is
lignin and pectin, the lignin and pectin, those are mostly left behind in the field in the redding process. So the redding is deteriorating the lignin and pectin. We want to deteriorate them in order to be able to refine the fiber more. I know there are processes in place, biochemical processes with enzymes and other systems that are cottonizing the hemp fiber, so make it ready for the textile industry, to spinning and to blend it with cotton. So really go down to the primary fiber, which you cannot, it's hard to do on a mechanized way. In those processes, probably lignin and pectin will be as a secondary product available, but it's not an activity we do. It's what I said earlier before, we have to keep the focus, and if we try to do everything ourselves, we will die trying probably.
Well, there's definitely a difference in mechanical and chemical processing. And a lot of what I see on the extraction of the pectin and lignin is through the chemical process, pre-decortication, or pre-redding, right, on a green fiber. That's cool, because I had an opportunity. This is so awesome, and I know that John was also on as well, but we got to listen to some Montana State students who had taken different hemp products or end products and created business plans and products out of them. And one of them was using the lignin and the pectin and had calculated what the value was. And I was taken back by value per acre when a commodity like lignin is considered or being extracted. But again, the capital that was needed in order to do that is very significant. And so, that initial injection of capital. So John, hi, thank you very much for joining us, by the way. Did you plan to vertically integrate from the onset? And if you have not vertically integrated, what parts of the operation would you have sought to substitute with strategic partners? So you did answer, I guess, the first part of this in the beginning, but it was not started. We first started decorticating it, and in the end, you're doing more and more and more, and opportunities arise, like taking over a hemp insulation factory. That's an opportunity that arises, and then you capitalize on that. But what I said, you can't do everything yourself. So what I talked about earlier with the lignin and the pectin, that's an activity we know people are doing that, have way more years advanced, like bass fiber technologies, for example. I know Jason Finnis, probably you spoke to him, at least you'll speak to him in the NOCO conference. Yeah, these guys are doing such a great job on that. I rather prefer to stay close to them than trying to do it myself. Another product we work with a strategic partner is the hemp plastics. So hemp plastics, hemp filled granulates. Therefore, you need compounding.
each compounder, I don't know if you work with a twin screw extruder, if you throw in long hemp fiber, I can tell you the machine will not run anymore again, never. It will block for the rest of its life, probably.
I hope not from experience. I hope you don't know that.
Yeah, no, we damaged quite a lot of machines, I can tell you. And in the end, what we did is we are able to pelletize the hemp fiber. So we are making the loose hemp fiber into little pellet packages, little pellets, even with the polymer in it already. So you make it dosable. You can dose it into an extruder, and that make granulates, and those granulates are hemp filled. You can fill it up to 50% fiber content in the fiber. So mind you, we can replace 50% plastic with hemp. Just think about shortly how much that could be potentially. But that's an activity, extruding, compounding. It's really a different type of business with different know-how. There we work together with a compounding company that does it for us, because in the end, trying to do everything yourself, it's better to work with a company we know what they're doing. And then sometimes it goes very funny, like what I said before with John Deere. Yeah. And the dealer in the north from the Netherlands, Groen Noord, is the local dealer. We had a question, hey guys, can you build 2 headers on one combine? First they said, you want what? I said, I want 2 headers on one combine on top of each other. Now, when they stop laughing, they start thinking. And these guys did develop for us the double cut unit based on our little drawing we had and the ID. And first, we only made for ourselves and together. Then we got requests in the market. And now we are selling those combines in the market. And this thing became so serious that we said, hey, guys, we are going to make a company out of this together, because it's more than a hobby now. And we made a joint venture. So that's also a way how to get vertical integrated.
I like it. Okay, so when we talk about substitutes, sought out substitute with strategic partners, if somebody's new getting into the industry, where do you suggest somebody really start on implementation for their supply chain? And where do you advise them to seek those strategic partners, at least initially?
Now, what I see too many times, Mandi, is that a lot of people starting growing hemp because of they're enthusiastic. And that's, of course, good, because I think hemp, also even industrial hemp, could be very addictive, because it's very easy to get enthusiastic about it if you see all the possibilities. But then the real life starts, and then enthusiasm is not enough to make a success. What I always advise is start thinking from the end client. Not start, I want to grow hemp and I process it and I will see what client I think I can find for it. Do it all the way around. Yes. Start thinking about your end client. And then you can see, is the paper factory, the ones that sell those, you need a different type of fiber, different varieties, different decortication, and so on, compared to a client that wants to be in the textile grade fiber. So engineer from the back, always look, what's my market, where I'm going to grow it for and process for, and then start small. Grow, harvest, decorticate, stop. Do that, master it, and then work with partners, a spinning mill or a weaving mill or whatever. But if I sometimes get requests, hey Mark, can you supply us seeds, harvesters, decortication unit, the cottonization unit, a spinning mill, a weaving mill? Yeah, guys, you want to have the whole supply chain supplied in 1 year. That's not realistic.
Yeah, unless you've got so much money you can sit on and waste.
No,
I don't know any investors are looking. Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow when we're raising capital that way, for sure.
I have to elaborate myself a little bit. It's not only enthusiasm is not enough. Only having the money is also not enough, because if you don't know how to allocate the money and what to do with it, you can run out of money pretty easily in the hemp industry, and because it's a high capex and a lot of risk involved. And but if you keep it small, start small, and build it up from there, I think then you have a learning curve. Everybody has a learning curve. Even we are learning every day.
Yeah, and absolutely.
After 27 years, you still think, okay, next year I'm going to do it differently.
Yes. And if we're not, we got to keep learning, right? And we're just now at the beginning, even as long as you've been in it, which is way longer than us over here in the US. Okay, so where would you say, where is HempFlax headed? What do you say opportunities are for the future for HempFlax? Where can we expect to see you in the next 5 or 10 years?
We made a very nice growth in the last years, and very steady organic growth, and of course took over in factory. I think and I hope we can continue doing this by increasing our growing area year after year, and also that do not grow where you think it's a very nice number to mention, but grow what you need and what you think you're going to sell. And of course, it's difficult. There's a little bit of forward-looking, future-looking, because let's say today we received the sowing seeds for this year, which I've ordered in November. In November, I had to think already where and how much of the crop 2022 I'm going to sell. A crop I'm going to harvest in September that I will be processing mostly in 2023. Anyway, with today's world and today's situation, looking how the world will look like in 2023, it's nuts. But yeah, you have to estimate how much you're going to sell in 2023 to order your sowing seeds in 2021.
Yeah, and there's lots of projections and plannings that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so benefits to production where you're at as opposed to other areas of the world. Can you speak to what real opportunities you have with your region and area outside of years of being able to research and stabilize genetics?
That's true, of course. I think also this produce local. I think, of course, we have clients in Australia, we have clients in the US, and we're shipping them. But yeah, really looking at it, it's not what you want to do in the first place, because it's shipping over long distance. But at that time, it was not possible because the US hemp growing was not allowed. And of course, from a few containers a month, you can't build up a whole hemp factory, therefore you need the volume. So I think by exporting it to those countries, we can build up a market, and then maybe an HempFlax USA or an HempFlax Australia is sometimes we are thinking about, HempFlax is more than a company. I see HempFlax more being a concept from seed till end product. And a concept with a good brand could also be something that to bring it up to the other side of the ocean and being, let's say, the McDonald's of the hemp industry.
Yes, absolutely. I love this idea. And we say I've said for a long time that, we've got to have some sort of model that we can almost hand over and say, this is what works and this is how it's going to work, instead of let's try this. The uncertainty definitely puts a halt on capital moving in and the availability to scale.
And standardize it. And that's why I'm always using the example of McDonald's. And of course, we can have a discussion about the quality of the food here. But, I have kids, so I have to go to the McDonald's once in a while. But if I go to the McDonald's in my hometown, or I go to the McDonald's to your hometown, the Big Mac is everywhere the same. And that's incredibly how standardized they are in the production. And if you want to open a McDonald's shop in your village, they tell you how to build the building and what kind of equipment you need, and they give you recipes, and they tell you exactly step by step how to make the Big Mac, because they want your Big Mac being the same as another guy in another town. Yeah.
Whether I'm over in Europe or here in the US or in the Philippines, right? I want the same Big Mac, no matter which store I'm at. Well, and I think this really speaks to the scalability of the industry as we get big brands that are going to come on and utilizing product, in multiple supply chains across their product development, auto industry, for an example. Out of the industries, would you say the auto industry has huge potential, or building materials has better potential? Where would you, obviously you being in building materials, where do you say they compare as far as opportunity to the value of hemp and the carbon sequestration that's attached, or the carbon credits that are attached to that?
I think for the carbon credits, the building industry is the most promising one. because there the building materials are being used for a long time. Normally the lifetime of a house is 60, 70 years. So we fix it on 70 years. So the carbon is stored for 70 years. That you may call a long-term storage. In the car industry, automotive industry, the lifetime of a car is about 15, 20 years maximum. So that fiber, the carbon stored in that fiber, it's difficult to claim because of the short fixation.
Yeah.
But I think both industries are important, because in the car industry, they also need to look at the footprint of the cars. And if they use glass fiber in the door panels and hemp fiber in the door panels, they can improve the footprint, because in the production of glass fiber, way more CO2 is emitted compared to the production of hemp fiber. And you make the car lighter, and we can obtain the same stiffness in the door panel with 30% weight reduction compared to glass fiber. A very nice example is the Bugatti Veyron. We are supplying fiber for the interior part manufacturer of the Bugatti Veyrons, and our fiber is in the Bugatti Veyron. That's not the reason why he's so expensive, by the way. But and this car of €1 million price with 1,000 horsepower engine has nothing to do with sustainability, nothing to do with renewability. They use our fiber because it's better, because they can obtain weight reduction. And actually, that's exactly the place I want to be with our products. I want to supply products that are better mechanical performance, better thermal insulation performance, better climate performance. And people are not buying products before that better for the world. Only a few, the few individual people that wants to improve the world. But most people, 99% of the people, are buying it because it's good for them. It's better for them. So if we can supply products that are better compared to the non-sustainable parts, then the sustainability comes as an extra.
I was going to say, and it's not very often that you can speak about sustainability and higher quality product and longer, that they last longer, as well as competitive on cost. And it seems like hemp is starting to gain that traction where it's not only sustainable, but like you said, it's better for all of these other reasons, which makes the investment a little bit more exciting, or at least easier to move money around.
Yeah.
So what would you say for somebody, what advice would you have for somebody that's really looking to get into this industry, especially on the processing side? What pitfalls should we really be watching for? Or, and I know that we've covered a lot of this, but yeah.
The pitfall is that if you start investing in processing machinery when the needed specification of the output is not clear, the specifications of the output your client needs, that's mostly determining the setup you're going to need. And again, enthusiasm and capital is just not enough. You need also have know-how how to apply it, or deploy it, and how to use it. And that's really it. And also with the farmers, of course, I think, not to be rude, but I think we have some disasters in the CBD industry in the last years in the US. Everybody started growing. A lot of farmers promised golden mountains and being multimillionaires after growing 1 hectare, 1 acre of CBD hemp, and that didn't came true. Actually, a lot of farmers lost money there. And I know a little bit how the farmers in Europe think, and I think they're the same in the US. They don't forget those things. So in order to get those people back on hemp growing, you have to have a very good proposal, because they have negative experience. I think it's a pity to do that. And really, before you start, think through that the whole supply chain is in place and you make it a success.
Yes. Okay, so there's a question that just came up, and I'm assuming, Chris, you just got logged on, but we were talking earlier about the dual crop. Do you see this as a future, especially for farmers in the U.S., the dual crop harvest?
Yeah. Hi, Chris. I think that's what I said. What I said before is that I don't see a CBD crop only being the future, because the CBD prices are too low for that. I think you can be competitive in the CBD industry if you capitalize on the other parts of the crop as well, on the fiber, on the seeds and everything. And then, of course, you will get a biomass with a lower CBD yield. But if your extraction facility is able to handle large volumes for an acceptable price, then you can still make a good CBD product out of it. even if you work with industrial hemp instead of the special CBD hemp. And the special CBD hemp, the seeds are also much more expensive.
Yeah.
And you're spreading the risk, because sometimes the seeds are good, sometimes the charge is a good market, sometimes it's a risk spreading as well for the farmer. But
okay, so
I will always choose for dual or triple use.
Okay, so I want to go back to the farm piece of this a little bit, because it's something that comes up a lot, especially when we're talking about the quality of fiber that's coming from a CBD crop compared to a fiber crop or a fiber and grain crop. Can you speak to some of the challenges for consistency of input with these different varieties and what you're seeing? I mean, especially in the textile grade or clothing grade, textile fibers, compared to, say, a long coarse fiber for insulation. Are those heavily impacted by inputs or fiber, the strains or genetics that are grown?
Yeah, they are. It's quite a complex thing. It's the variety. There are varieties that process very well, and there are varieties that are real seed varieties, and they don't give you good quality of fiber because they are grown and breeded for seed yield. And the CBD as well, and also the way of growing affects the fiber quality, because I can have the same variety with good fiber yields and bad fiber yields. So the sowing density is very important.
Yes.
For example,
the sowing density. How many? Can you speak to that? Like what you're seeing for best success for your production on density? Is it 900?
Yeah, for fiber purposes, we always advise to have between 80 and 120 plants a square meter. So you have to do the calculation for me per square feet, but sorry, I'm in a metric system, but it's 80 to 120 plants per square meter. Then you get the most optimum fiber. And that's we do about 35 kilos of hemp seed per hectare.
Okay.
And that's that then you're really optimizing a fiber crop, because nevertheless we do the total crop valuation, the fiber, seeds, and CBD, everything. You have to pick a sweetheart. So you have to pick what I'm optimizing for. Am I optimizing on CBD? Then you have to accept that you have a lower seed yield, a lower fiber yield, or a lower fiber quality. But we are a fiber company from original, and we're still a fiber company. So it's obvious we are optimizing the fiber yield. And we take the CBD and the seeds as an extra from the crops. And we accept that we have a lower seed yield and lower CBD yield because we're optimizing on fiber. The problem with CBD crops is, first of all, they don't generate much biomass per hectare because there are most 1-2 plants a square meter. And then you get more this marijuana type of hemp, the more like bushes with a lot of trenches on. And those trenches where they're connected to the main stem is a little hard, woody part, and that you always find back in your fiber. It's very difficult to get it out. That's why we are sowing so dense that we only have one long stalk up to 3-4 meters high without long, strong branches on it, because then you get the most beautiful fiber.
Okay, I appreciate hearing this and just validating what we talk about and often, and then really just the education around those different types of crops and sowing densities. And we're getting ready to do fiber trials across 10 different states, 6 regions, 10 different genetics, so that we can do just this, show, and then take the fiber production or take the crop production right into processing to show quality, for each genetic. So I'd be interested in comparing and, getting some feedback from you, of course, on this, as this is really for scale. When we look at large brands that are looking to bring processing back to our borders and within the States, especially with war and what we've seen this last year, and then, it's becoming increasingly difficult to process or to do business in China. And so, I'm excited about that progress. Okay, so
it's also with hemp. It's rubbish in is rubbish out. So and that's another saying we have. We have a very strong belief: quality starts in the field, not in the factory. It doesn't matter how many millions you spend on the eradication plant. Rubbish in is rubbish out.
Yes.
So if you ruin it in the field, you can't do it right. So your farmers are very important to you.
Yes. Yeah. And understanding, supporting our genetics and knowing what's going to go where so that we have a solid production. And, the seed count and sowing density is is so critical, for our farms. We're running both planted and drilled so that we can show the difference and show how that affects the density. Can you speak a little bit? We have about 5 minutes left, but how the industry or what you see in the industry as far as moving to regenerative practices compared to conventional practices, for farming, and then where that impacts the bottom line potentially for production.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Actually, I'm experimenting ourselves now with this. Till now, our farmers in the Netherlands and Germany are doing conventional farming because they have cash crops like potatoes, sugar beets, and stuff. And although they are researching and they're changing farming practices, but it's not really regenerative farming. As I have to focus on CO2 capture and CO2 capitalization, regenerative farming is something I'm testing on our own farm in Romania. I think hemp can be a very important crop in this regenerative farming principle because of the weed suppression capacity. It suppresses the weed by itself very easily, where if in the no-till or low-till farming, to get a clean start and clean soil is some difficult, so your weed pressure will increase. So it's very interesting. I do not have much experience myself with it. I'm very looking forward to learn more, and that's why I say even after 27 years of hemp growing, we're still learning.
Yes. Well, and remembering that soybean took something like 60 years to become main crop, added in the main rotation and used like it is today. And so we're just at the forefront. So don't give up for all of those that are getting into this. Where do you see major opportunity in collaboration between the United States and HempFlax or the Europe in general in the industry?
No, I think that there are real opportunities because Europe is a couple of years ahead, and so let's say we made a lot of mistakes for you already, and believe me, some mistakes we made twice to be sure. So I think we can learn a lot from that. Although America potentially also has a great market potential, and I think there's a lot of cooperation going on already with equipment manufacturer suppliers, genetic suppliers, and I know also on organization like the Global Hemp Association, ISA, IA, the Canadian CTA, as far we are all have the intentions to set up the Global Hemp Association, and and be visiting each other's conferences. So I always like to do that to learn from the other side of the world as well.
Yes, well, and I think this is where collaboration becomes so valuable, right? If we look at the future of the industry and of our companies, both individual and regional, right? The collaboration is really what we need to rise the tides and to build those supply chains, especially if we're looking to secure large automotive brands that are, building each part in each different part of the world and then, compiling the car in another part. So securing those supply chains and then understanding this consistency in genetics from, what's going in the ground in one region to another region. And like you said, rubbish in is rubbish out. So mostly, that's great. Yes. Okay. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to connect or, better understand the business or have questions? How do they reach out to somebody on your staff or part of your business? What would you recommend?
I would recommend to visit our website, www.hempflax.com. There you see a lot of information about what we do and a lot of information about our products. You can even download the growing guide on our website if you tap on the genetics. And also there you see our email address info@hempflax.com. Awesome. Ask your question and my colleagues will take care that me or one of my other colleagues from the crop department or the business development we'll pick it up and we will take care you get an answer.
I love it. Okay, well, we're at 1 hour. I could keep talking to you for a long time. I'm excited to watch your presentation at NOCO and then at your future events. I'd love to participate, help collaborate, bring other key players into the mix. So don't hesitate to holler at me as well. But any last words that you give of advice or suggestions before we close up?
Yeah, what I said before, and I think that's the most vulnerable advice I can give to you, valuable advice I can give to you today, is really really plan what your end product looks like and what your client looks like before you start. And if you planning to grow hemp and you are planning to plant hemp, also start thinking about how to harvest it. We have seen so many times people calling us up in September, hey, I need a harvester to harvest 200 acres of hemp. Can you supply? So, yeah, next year? No, this year, next week. So guys, the machine weighs 25,000 kilograms. I can't send it to you over DHL overnight express. So although we hire an Antonov plane, but this will be very expensive. So if you planning to harvest this year, and especially now with all the troubles we have with the parts supply chain issues, electronics, hydraulic components, it's terrible. We still have a few units available. We're still able to supply, but then we really need to know it very quickly, because last minute, it's never making it cheap.
Well, and I think we saw that in the CBD market, especially here in the US. We had tons of people get out and grow it, and no comprehension of the amount of labor or time it would take to harvest. And so I'm going to speak also real quick. Tomorrow, we've got a farming committee meeting, or a farming meeting that we're going to, it's basically an education. We've got two people, Roman from Ukraine is coming to talk about seed production, and Chris Adams also is doing the same thing about the farming, but really wanting to touch on that harvesting piece, so that we really start educating and connecting those dots now as to what it's going to look like before we get the seeds in the ground. So I encourage everybody to log on to our globalhempassociation.org website and register for the event tomorrow. You can also find us on all of our social media channels. And then a quick reminder, go to your YouTube or your LinkedIn and hit the little bell to remind yourself and subscribe to these. A lot of our viewers are not subscribed, so I want to make sure that you get the notice when we do go live. This will be our 5th meeting this week. And so we do put a lot of content out, and I want to make sure we're meeting your needs and make sure that we can get guests on that really help to support. So Mark, is there anything we can do for you right now as we sign up or close off?
No, I'm happy.
Okay, well, perfect.
Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for the opportunity you gave me to discuss this with you. It's my pleasure. And then I will head back to work on building the hemp industry. Absolutely. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. I'd love to have you back, like I said, sometime. And if anybody needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll see you guys at NOCO. You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much. Bye. Bye.